Hello everybody, Jim here to talk about the now semi-infamous shipyard fuel mechanics post, how it works today, and what's in store for the future. Oh my, what a mess this has become. And I mean, I have problems with this, but it's not the same problems most people have with it. And maybe it's because it was published on Friday the 13th, the same day I left for Milwaukee. Ooh, and that trip went interestingly. We can talk about that in another video, though. Yeah, a lot of people are really grumpy about this for a number of different reasons. Some of them, they have every right to be angry. Others, that they really, I mean, it was just a stupid mistake is what it was. So, what we're going to do here is, quickly as I can, go through this article and explain the way fuel used to work, the way fuel works now, basically what the article does, except I'm going to add my own understanding of this to the mix. First things first, this article feels to me as if the person who wrote it doesn't really understand that hydrogen fuel, or now plasma fuel, is not for long-range ships, and no matter how much of that you can take in, I mean, I guess technically it increases your range, but I mean, it doesn't drastically increase your range. It's a minute amount. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because it's quantum fuel that gets you real distances. I mean, sure, this will get you across a solar system, but it will not get you through a jump point. And if you do go across a solar system, if you do go across the solar system, it will take you days, and your processor will melt, and the server will crash, and you know it'll be bad. So this stuff is not long distance fuel. The way I think of it, if you were going on a beer run, hydrogen fuel would be you walking from your house to the car and from your car to the store. Quantum fuel is what's going to get you down the road to the highway, down that road, down the next road, and to the store. So this is really just short-range stuff. This is not fast. This is not for long distances. And the author, I mean, kind of acts like it is. So people who buy, and I don't know if the 100 is going to be able to refine quantum fuel or not, but people who buy it based on, seriously extending their range, don't. Don't do that. Because unless this can refine quantum fuel, you're not really going to be able to go anywhere with the refinery. That's not what it's for, and it's not going to work that way. You go ahead and you can try to argue with me on this, but everything I've ever read, everything Chris Roberts has ever said, this is not going to increase your range. And people with short-range fighters that are upset because your range has been limited, you don't really have to worry so much about that. Something even worse has happened to you. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's start with how fuel used to work. Okay, they call it a common misconception that fuel is only consumed during boost and afterburner. It's not a misconception, really. What it is a long time ago, and I actually looked this up. I found it again. It's episode 41 of 10 for the Chairman. Chris Roberts said the way fuel is going to work is that you'll have finite boost and thrust fuel, and he thought that maybe we might have like infinite getting around fuel. Maybe. He wasn't sure on it. And that we would have jump fuel after that. It wasn't quantum yet. That's probably where all of this came from. I know that's where I got this quote-unquote misconception, is from the chairman himself, the guy who runs the company. So I don't feel like it's a misconception. I feel like what it actually is the very best information we had until this article came out. And to call that a misconception is disingenuous. So to say it was never intended to work that way, that's not true. A few years ago, we were talking about it, and Chris Roberts was talking about it, so it's a thing. That being said, the way it actually works is you consume hydrogen fuel to like fly in combat and to fly around on a planet and to do boost or afterburner, and then quantum fuel gets you long distances. The way it's going to work in the future, I actually really like, and other people have problems with this, but basically what they say is there's gas in space. Not just hydrogen, but like any type of gas. They use the example of like ammonia. So you take in gases into your fuel intake, and then you can make fuel with it if you don't have a refinery, and just standard getting around fuel. If you have a refinery, you can take different gases and make special kinds of fuel. Like you can make super sneaky fuel with low emissions, or you can make super efficient fuel that lets you go a really long way, or you can make like super hot burning fuel or whatever, super boomy fuel that gives your afterburner extra punch, but burns up really quick. So you're going to be able to refine different types of fuel. And if you have multiple tanks, you can have multiple types of fuel. So any ship with more than one tank could have 2 different types of maneuvering fuel. So you could have some sneaky fuel for sneaking around and then some super boosty fuel for getting away from a fight. That's really cool to me. I think it's a great mechanic. And then it leads to other game choices like, okay, well, I'm in this nebula and it's 80% hydrogen and only 1% ammonia. So do I gather up a bunch of hydrogen really quick? Or do I strain out the ammonia so I can get my better fuel? You have to make more choices, and that makes gathering fuel fun for Starfarer captains or anybody who's got multiple tanks or has to make a choice. That's a nice game mechanic to me. Now, a lot of people are complaining that there are not different types of plasma. There's one type of plasma, Jim, and I mean, I am not a science guy, so I'm not going to argue with you. I've seen some people pulling up sciencey articles to argue that there are different types of plasma. I've even seen a couple of people who were convinced by the argument, but I'm not going to argue that here. What I will say is that I don't care. I really don't care. Maybe it's impossible, maybe it's not, but it's no dumber than Quantum Drive. And in a world where millions of people can enjoy The Last Jedi, I think I should be allowed to enjoy this in peace. So just let me be a dumb guy and enjoy this. I didn't really enjoy The Last Jedi, but I'm gonna give this a pass. So I'm okay with this. If you're not, I'm very sorry that they ruined your science. I really am. I've felt your pain in the past. So that's how fuel is going to work now, and I'm really happy with that. Now, where did we get the problems? Why is everyone so upset? If we scroll down, here's a few interesting things. The first one that I'm going to point out is right here. This is under the future fuel cycle, how fuel will work in the future. And this line here says, finally, quantum fuel will remain as is. It will only be consumed during quantum travel and refilled at designated stations like Cry-Astro. One interpretation of this line, and it is a good interpretation, is that you will only be able to refill quantum fuel at NPC-controlled stations. And that basically castrates the Starfarer. If the Starfarer cannot refine quantum fuel, you're boned. Essentially. You're just completely out of luck. Because if we scroll down here, this is a list of all the ships that have fuel scoops that can make their own maneuvering fuel. So combat, short range, cannot equip a fuel intake. They cannot regenerate maneuvering fuel. Basically, every other ship in the game can, except for a few racers. So, and the ships that can't regenerate their own fuel are supposed to be a carrier-based ship that would get their fuel from the carrier, which has fuel scoops. So who's the Starfarer going to sell to? Nobody. It would be no customers if it can't refine quantum fuel. More to the point, if it's only designated NPC-controlled stationary stations that can supply quantum fuel, you're going to have to choose between going to a Starfarer, which could be anywhere, or going to a presumably patrolled, safe, refueling station that can also fix your ship, rearm you, and give you quantum fuel. Where are you going to go? You going to go to that ghetto Starfarer and maybe get your ship shot up? Or are you going to go to the full service station? Anytime you have the option, you will skip the Starfarer. Basically, your Starfarer is just ruined. Fortunately, even though this does say that the future of quantum fuel is that you'll only be able to get it at designated stations like Cry-Astro, and you could say that they said this only is attached to consumed during quantum travel, and it will be refilled at designated stations, but they just forgot to mention the Starfarer. You could say that, but really it does look like they're saying you won't be able to do quantum with a Starfarer. I thought, now that's ridiculous. They've said that you can refine quantum fuel with a Starfarer, so I went looking. That's why I did all the research. I spent like 5-6 hours looking, and you know what I found? Bupkis. I found places where they implied the Starfarer can refine quantum fuel, and I found places where they outright said, Chris Roberts in one video actually corrected himself, and he was like, yeah, you'll be able to refine fuel, well, boost and thrust fuel, and I'm sorry for the bad Chris Roberts impersonation. Mr. Roberts, if you're watching, I apologize. But anyway, he said you'll be able to, he actually corrected himself to say thrust and maneuvering fuel or thrust and boost fuel, not quantum fuel. So, I mean, I couldn't find anything. So in desperation, I went to the forums. And one person, thank God, pointed out this. Now, all of my searches were text searches through transcripts and articles. And I would like cross-reference things, like I would search Starfarer and quantum and the word refine, and I searched everywhere. And I found dozens of places where they mentioned that it could refine fuel and harvest fuel, and no place where they said that it could refine and harvest quantum fuel. Until the forum guy pointed me to this picture. It was in a picture. I can't text search a picture, but it says right here, designed to collect and refine quantum fuel in flight. There it is. I mean, bold as you please. You cannot argue with this. It is obvious what the purpose of the Starfarer is. So, yeah, I finally was pointed in the direction of something that says unequivocally that the Starfarer can collect and refine quantum fuel. So, no need to worry about that, guys. Plus, even if that weren't the case, this says that quantum fuel can only be refilled at designated stations, and that is clearly contradicted by the fact that the Vulcan has a quantum refilling tank for refilling stranded travelers. So this is a load of crap. This is entirely incorrect. Pay no attention to it. This is garbage. That being said, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are going to say all of that stuff we said in the past is done, the game changes, we told you it would change, and the change is you can no longer refine quantum fuel. So if that's the case, somebody please keep an eye out and find confirmation after Friday the 13th last week that says that we can refine quantum fuel. Please look for that for me. And if you find it, I don't care when you find it. If it's a year in the future, post it in the comments. I will come look. Thank you very much. Because I would like some clarification on this. They did say something that is contrary to everything we've been told in the past, and sometimes when they say things that are contrary to what we've been told in the past, they end up sticking with it. So you never know. Although I think this is a pretty good argument that we can collect and refine quantum fuel. So yeah. All right, the next thing that people are up in arms about, and I think there's a lot more teeth to this one, is that short-range fighters have been neutered. A lot of people are worried that they're going to lose range on their short-range fighters. Not really. The range has always been limited by quantum fuel, not by this new process which they describe in detail. What you're limiting is your combat time. Your combat is on a timer. You're going to run out of maneuvering fuel. And now ships like the Gladius and Hornet can no longer regenerate boost, thruster, maneuvering fuel. You can't do it anymore. Now, I don't know if those big things on the front of the Hornet are actually supposed to be intakes. I haven't looked into that at all. But even if they are, basically they're saying that those aren't intakes anymore because the Hornet doesn't have fuel intakes, which personally I think is dumb. I think your combat ships would be the most likely to want to regenerate maneuvering fuel if that technology existed. Why wouldn't you do that? But they're saying, nope. So, I mean, the argument that these ships are short range so they don't need to regenerate maneuvering fuel is stupid. It's just dumb. You need to regenerate maneuvering fuel for combat more than anything else. So why wouldn't they use the technology on these? But it's not my game. They're allowed to change it however they like. I'm in complete agreement with them. Make your game your way. It's not my game. I just backed it. I didn't buy it. I don't own stock in it. You do what you want, but this is going to turn people off, and it's going to make a lot of people angry, and you need to accept the consequences. So that's why people are upset about their short-range fighters. Beyond that, I actually really like the mechanic in general, except for the two things that I mentioned. And think about it for a minute. Think if quantum fuel really couldn't be refined by the Starfarer. This is saying that basically long-range exploration, industrial transport support, and most competition ships will be able to regenerate their own maneuvering fuel, just like the Starfarer can make. So they've already cut the Starfarer out of almost all of these. That's dumb. And the ships that are left are carrier-based. So the carriers have their own fuel scoops, so they're going to gas up on the carrier. So who's the Starfarer going to sell to if you can't refine quantum fuel? Nobody. Nobody will buy from your ghetto Starfarer. You just out of luck. It's not really a problem for me because I would just melt my Starfarer immediately. The biggest problem would be taking down all of the Starfarer posters that I've had printed and getting rid of my Starfarer mousepad. That would be harder for me than getting rid of the ship. I love my Starfarer, but I also love the Carrack. And considering in this instance the Carrack would be able to do everything the Starfarer did and more, I would just be stupid not to switch. But fortunately, I believe we can switch, or we can refine quantum fuel. And as for you guys who said those things on the front of the Hornet are intakes, this thing on the front of my Gemini is not an intake. This is actually a reverse thruster. So I don't know personally, but maybe you need to go and look at some diagrams of the Hornet and make sure that that's not supposed to be a reverse thruster. Maybe it is. I mean, I don't know. I really don't. So look into that. That looks like intakes, but so does this, and it's not. The intake for the fuel is up here. So anyway, that's pretty much all I have for the Shipyard Fuel Mechanics post for today. If you guys would do me a favor, and if the confirmation that we can refine quantum fuel does not exist, pester people until we get it. So let's make that a thing, that we want confirmation that this is bogus. That's what I really want, is just people to get confirmation that this is wrong. So if you could do that, I'd be super happy. And folks who can no longer regenerate maneuvering fuel in their combat ships that need it most, I'm genuinely sorry for you. That sucks. But I've been told many times in the past that if I don't like a change to my ship, I can just melt it. So you guys, I guess, just melt them. I guess nobody's going to fly around on a Hornet or a Gladius anymore. Bye, guys. Who cares? So long. You guys suck. We're going to go and get, I don't know, like an Aurora, I guess. They've got fuel intakes. Or maybe we'll all buy 100 eyes. Oh, not likely. So, thank you guys very much for watching. And in the future, I will cover the Q&A for the 100 eye series. That will include the first and the second Q&A. And I still have to talk about the Cyclone and the Razor. So maybe you'll see that video coming up. Regardless, I will see you all next time. I guess that's pretty clear. Oh man, I thought I'd pop in here and take a look just to make sure. That definitely says intake. I don't know what it's taking in space. maybe for atmospheric flight. I don't know, but it's definitely not fuel. It's not a fuel intake. I don't know what it's taking in. My guess is the primary purpose for this intake now is salt. This is a salt intake. Oh, wow, man, that's going to make some people grumpy. So long, giant intakes. You no longer have a purpose. This is now a short-range fighter that cannot regenerate maneuvering fuel. So sorry, folks. Yep, salt intakes.